you tweeted this out, and I'm curious about it relative to the Browns' offense. They've added RPO wrinkles, but otherwise same offense as previous years with Kevin Stefanski. Ken Dorsey hired because he saw the game similar to Stefanski, has more experience, RPO design usage. Isn't a completely new scheme in 2024. Um, when you look at it, whatever they've done offensively just hasn't worked. I I would argue that the offense kind of lost its identity to be physical with what they've tried to do.
Right. Right. From a schematic standpoint, they're not much different than Kevin's ever been. Like they're trying to do more gun run, which has been more effective for them than the under center stuff. Like, but it's no different. They ran a lot of gun pin pull stuff last year, living in a lot of 11 personnel, three wideouts and David Njoku. Like they've continued that this year. I'd actually say that they've gone into more multiple tight end sets than they have in recent seasons. So, if the scheme stuff's not different up front, I think obviously you can make an argument for, hey, should it be based on how they're producing with those guys? The pass game's not that much different. I mean, they're in a lot of flood concepts, which are three to a side, high, medium, low. They will do some bootleg stuff where they're trying to do, again, the same sort of flood variations and deception off of it. They love to run mesh. They still run that all the time. Kevin's done it his entire career here. And like they're a little more dressed up on some stuff, but they love to run, deep push through routes with a dig route underneath it, variations of that concept where they're side to siding it. Like they're not that much different. They're not. This isn't some. Like there's a misconception that this is a completely different way to approach the offensive football, and it's not. It's a lot of stuff Kevin has run here. When they've gone empty, they like to run spacing concepts to stretch the field horizontally on underneath coverage. So if you're playing cover three and you're playing four zone defenders underneath, we're going to try to put five underneath and identify the advantage. Those are all things that they've done, and I would argue that they've done even more um, backward process stuff with like away from this concept over the offseason, which is like this air raid. There was a lot of like buzzwords thrown around, and they're getting under center and throwing 5-step, 7-step under center throws to tight ends vertically and doing more of that stuff than they have. I just it's a funny thing that people think that the disappointing nature of Deshaun Watson starts are because the offense was so different. It really hasn't been that different than what Kevin's done here. They have done a little more RPO stuff because that's what Ken Dorsey's a little more comfortable in, and Nick Charlton, another guy that they brought into the offensive staff, more working with the O line. But they've introduced some of that stuff, and they've been actually okay with it. But the struggles of the beginning of the season were not because this offense was something vastly, wildly different than what they've ever run. I just think that they were trying to find answers for a quarterback that is incapable of being consistent anymore. And I think that's where the frustration comes from, and that's where the lack of belief filtered into everybody else around him, and that's why they struggled. You're seeing like the offense is not very different with at all with Jameis than it was with Deshaun, and you're obviously seeing that they can find a pretty healthy amount more success moving the football with that quarterback change, which is no different again than last season when you saw with Joe Flacco late in the year. So I don't have concerns about the Browns' ability to move the football. I have concerns about the run game stuff is a problem, and I think that when you lose Bill Callahan, I think Callahan gets a lot of credit for certain things. I don't think that he should get credit for. Like I thought the offensive line struggled last year too, but what you do miss is your offensive coordinator. He's usually a guy who does a lot of your run game planning. So, hey, here are the run concepts I think we should be running versus these 7 looks that are the predominant looks that the Broncos will give us. This is what we should be running in these scenarios. And that's a heavy play caller, offensive line coach conversation. They obviously do protections together too. Hey, if we're going 5-man protection, this is what it'll be. 6-man protection, here's what we can do. Those are the conversations. And I just don't think who they've brought in between Andy Dickerson and Roy Estevan and some of these others who are doing that, there is not a tangible difference. They've run more inside zone, which has been better because it's a good run concept staple, but their under center run stuff has really cratered in a pretty significant way this year, and I'm not sure that it's even a viable option for them moving forward, especially for the rest of the year, because they're really struggling schematically to come up with answers for the amount of players in the box teams are using, and the point of attack stuff is a problem too.